I turn around, I see safe space. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it wouldn't just be a group of kids playing basketball if it wasn't a group and a village of people here, you know what I mean, that were willing to make all of those things possible. You know what I mean? Some of the kids are playing ball. You got some of the kids that are inside working on homework. You got some kids that are in the back just in the computer lab. But at the end of the day, if this space wasn't here, where would these kids be?
It's just an all-round place for them to go that they need right now in this time of day in this world.
A place where they can go and be themselves.
They brought brightness to the community.
Aaron Mabin was born, raised, and to this day lives in Baltimore.
Former NFL player turned teacher, Aaron Mabin.
With a simple mission, to help underprivileged and at-risk youth excel.
He's gifted, and he doesn't mind sharing his gift with anybody that wants to share it.
He's the glue that holds everything together.
They listen to him, I'm telling you. I don't know if it's because he's a big, tall man.
We have a counselor, we have an artist,
a teacher, a preacher, an educator.
Father figure, he's that mentor, he's that brother, you know, he's that uncle, you know, he's just, whatever they're missing in their life, he's that.
All those things, because that's him rolled up in one.
He's actually boots on the ground, committed, 100% committed to trying to make a difference.
We all have a personal responsibility to do right by future generations. And how we handle ourselves in this moment determines the opportunity that our kids and our kids' kids will have.
You remember Mr. Aaron at the rec center? How he used to make us read and stuff? Man, we ain't want to read, but it paid off. Because now, I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor, I'm a teacher. I'm getting anything I want because I have the knowledge of reading and writing. That's what I think the impact will be.
My charge to everybody in this room is for everyone to find what their responsibility is and to see where they can have the most impact.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Aaron Mabin.
Welcome, welcome.
Wow.
Good to have you back here, man.
Good to be back.
Yeah.
Good to be back. It's been some time.
Such a fascinating journey. I mean, I was telling you this earlier. I mean, you've done so many interesting things in your life. You know, obviously a great athlete, artist, author, educator, activist, so many cool things in a place that is dear and near to your heart and needs as much help and as much input as anywhere in the country. So,
Absolutely.
We were talking earlier today, and I wish you could share this a little bit with the folks here about art and how important art is in your life and how long that goes back to when art really kicked in for you as something meaningful.
Man, for me, that's a lifelong journey. I think I told you earlier, I was creating art before I could form words and speak. You know, and as a kid that in Baltimore City, West Baltimore to be specific, you know, I grew up functionally illiterate until I was in the 6th grade. You know, so in terms of just being passed through, being kind of, we were the children that were left behind during No Child Left Behind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And experiencing that, growing up in that environment, that becomes your normal. And not just for yourself, that becomes normal for your peers. That becomes the status quo, so to speak. And when I actually was able to really use my art to speak about my story and to actually share my experiences and my emotions, that became my preferred language method of choice. You know, after my mother passed away at 6 years old, I stopped talking a lot. You know, I didn't really share with people what I was feeling or what I was going through. And in Baltimore, you don't really have safe space, you know what I mean, to go to your homies and to talk about stuff like that. So art became the way that I communicated. And knowing what a valuable resource that was in my development, when I got old enough to use my platform to really speak to certain issues that were important to me, obviously the arts had to be at the top of that list because I know what the arts did for me in my life. In many ways, it probably saved my life.
Yeah. Art activism, it's just an interesting phrasing. Explain that. What's your definition of art activism?
Art activism is using art as a tool to inspire and challenge and create social change. You know, Art Activism was the title of my first book, and the reason that I wrote it was because throughout my time in studies here, you know, where I was studying integrative arts and studying, you know, Black history, American history, studying the social justice movements of the past, understanding how art was intrinsically tied to each of these movements. You can't show me one movement that we had in this country where I can't show you how art directed and expanded its voice, its presence, and its impact. So, you know, in academia, when I started looking around for examples of the type of art that I made and more literature and academia around it, I realized that it didn't exist. And, you know, one thing that I really believe intrinsically is when you look around and you see something that doesn't exist that's really passionate on your heart, it's because God intended for you to create it. So I wrote Art Activism in 2017. By 2018, it was being taught at about 5 colleges nationally. And I realized that like we were on to something here. So after that, I decided to write the workbook version of Art Activism, which became the beginning stages of the curriculum that I developed that's now being taught in about 29 schools in the city of Baltimore, about 56 schools nationally. So, you know, humble beginnings, you know, small things can become things that are so much greater.
Yeah, yeah. We talked, absolutely. Last question, or last thing I want to hear you comment on, and you've used the word purpose here a couple times, and earlier you were talking about, you know, obviously the work you're doing in the place you're doing it, there are obstacles, there are setbacks, there are roadblocks, but you made the comment, you know, when you are purpose-driven, it's different than just doing a job.
Yes.
And you do feel purpose-driven, and that allows you to just keep plugging away, right?
Absolutely. I mean, anybody that does this work, it's thankless work. I'll be very honest with you. Nobody's waking up every morning to pat you on the back and thank you for your service. You know what I mean? You're lucky if, you know, 5, 10, 15 years down the line, and that started to happen for me, and it's honestly, it's a beautiful thing. If your students and your mentees start to come to you and say, this is how you've impacted my life. This is what I'm doing now because of your teachings. This is what you've opened my world up to that I've now taken and expanded on, you know? But again, those moments are few and far in between. So if you're doing it for the praise, if you're doing it for the money, if you're doing it for the celebration or the fanfare, you're not gonna be in it long.
Yeah.
But if you understand that all of us has a responsibility to leave this world and our communities in a better place than we found them. All of us has a social contract that whether we choose to acknowledge it or not, we're bound by to make sure that we set a positive example to the next generations that follow of how we're supposed to deal with one another, embrace one another, support one another, uplift one another, build for our communities. I just get tired of hearing people talk the talk without rolling up their sleeves and getting their hands dirty. So if I'm gonna be talking, then it's only going to be in the time that I'm not actually out there working. You know, I think that should be what we should really be focused on. Anybody can talk a good game, but it takes a lot more initiative to be the person out in the field that's doing the work.
And you can see that even if it's just one life, right? One kid that you help makes that day worth it, right?
Absolutely. I think too many people in this line of work have what we call a savior's complex. I don't believe that I'm out there saving anybody. I'm serving, you know, and there's a big difference. If you think you're out there saving people, you're probably the wrong person to be doing the work. But I think that when you approach it with a servant's mentality and you approach it with a love ethos that forces you to look at everybody's humanity and everybody's situation as being deserving of the same life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, then now we're cooking with grease. Now we can actually get in here and we can start to address the real problems that are tearing our communities apart. But we can't start to do that until we can at least get on the same page about what we're fighting against and how we need to go about doing that.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Appreciate you, bro.
Appreciate you.
Keep up doing good work.
Always.